Now, one thing which I think I have, I did not say in the end, that when we calculate the standard deviation is directly related to dispersion, directly proportional to dispersion. So if standard deviation gets higher, dispersion is more. Dispersion or spread of data, or variation in data is more. Okay, why? Because standard deviation, if you look at the equation, it was basically the difference between individual values and the mean. So if there's more difference between the mean and the other values, that means the data is more dispersed or more spread out. Okay, it has more variation. So standard deviation and the dispersion are directly related to each other, directly proportional to each other. Today we'll start the discussion with percentage of vehicles in the pace range. So first of all, tell me, what do we mean by pace? Pace means what? Pace was a range, and we calculated that range in the last lecture. So what does it mean? Pace means what? Yeah, anyone? What do we mean by pace? It was a range of 10 miles per hour from the data set. I'm trying to brush off the dust from your mind, huh? That you give me the answer quickly. It was a range of 10 miles per hour in which what happened? In which we had what? Anyone? Nobody remembers. Okay, this is why I started, posting those questions. So I already posted in section 1, and I was thinking that it will be posted in both sections, but I posted in section 2 as well. But anyways, pace is the 10 miles per hour range in which you have majority of the drivers, the highest proportion of drivers. Pace is the 10 miles per hour range in which you have comparatively highest proportion of drivers. Okay. So in the last lecture, we looked at how to calculate the pace range using the frequency distribution curve. So this was a curve. I told you, you draw a line in the center, which has a length of 10 miles per hour, and then you move this line upward and downward. Wherever the two ends of the line meet the two ends of the curve or the sides of the curve, this is your pace range. And for this data set, the pace range was 42.5 to 52.5. So these values are measures of central tendency. The values of the pace range are measures of central tendency. We said in this range we have highest proportion of drivers, highest frequency of drivers. So we want to know how much is that frequency. As a measure of dispersion, we want to know how much is that frequency. Okay, so for between 42 and 52.5, exactly how much percentage of drivers we have. This is a measure of dispersion. Okay. So we will do it using the cumulative frequency curve, the bottom curve. Okay, so you found the value from the top curve. Now you will use the bottom curve to find out the percentage of drivers for these values. Now keep one thing in mind, that they have plotted these two curves on the same graph paper, and the x-axis has the same scale. So whether you take the values from the top axis or from the bottom axis, it doesn't matter. For them, it doesn't matter. Okay. The important thing is you drop perpendicular from values of 42.5 and 52.5 to the cumulative frequency distribution curve. For the case of this example, it doesn't matter whether you do it from the top axis or bottom axis, because they have the same scale. This middle speed and this speed has the same axis, same scale. Okay, so you can see here they are dropping the perpendicular from here. Okay, if you plot these two graphs on two different papers or on two different pages, then obviously you will drop the perpendicular from the x-axis of the cumulative frequency distribution graph. Okay, in this case it doesn't matter. In this case it doesn't matter. Okay, so 42.5 is this value. They dropped the perpendicular over the curve, and then they found the value of cumulative frequency. It is 16%. 16%. Obviously, I'm just taking the value which they are stating because I don't know the exact uh, scale of the graph. Okay, so I'll just take the value which they have given me. If you have the value, if you have the scale, then you will know the value exactly yourself, right? So 16% is the percentage of vehicles of which is cumulative frequency for 42.5. Now cumulative, this is cumulative frequency. So cumulative frequency means what? Cumulative frequency means that any value, cumulative means what? You have added all the previous values, right? You have added all the previous values. So 16% is not the frequency or the cumulative or the frequency for 42.5 miles per hour speed. It is the cumulative frequency, which means it has all the values added up to 42.5. All values from 0 to 42.5, frequencies of all values from 0 to 42.5 have been added. Okay, so 16% is not the percentage of drivers driving at 42.5. This is the percentage of drivers which are driving up to 42.5 because all previous values have been added. This is why we are calling it cumulative frequency. Okay, and then you go to the upper limit of pace, which is for 52.5, and which is here. You drop a perpendicular on the y-axis, and the cumulative frequency is 77%. So again, same concept. 77% doesn't mean 77% drivers are driving at 52.5. It means 77% drivers are driving up to 52.5. Okay, so from 0 to 42.5, I have 16% drivers. Okay, from 0 to 42.5, I have 16% drivers, and from 0 to 52.5, I have 77% drivers. Okay, so 0 to 42.5, 16%. 0 to 52.5, 77%. How many drivers between these two values? What should I do to calculate the percentage of drivers between 52.5 and 42.5? What should I do?
77 minus 16.
77 minus 16, which they have done here, right? So you get 61%. So this 61% is a measure of dispersion, which is showing you that 61% drivers are driving between 42.5 and 52.5 miles per hour. And the remaining, obviously, 39% are distributed, but this 61% is driving in this 10 miles per hour range. Okay. Now, if you go to the data set itself, you can see the highest and the lowest value in the graph here as well. So the lowest value is 32, the lowest observed value is 32, and the highest observed value is 66. Okay, so the lowest and the highest is, way beyond the pace range. Pace is 42.5, 52.5. So it is not close to the lowest or the highest value. Okay, and even then you have 61% drivers in that range. Okay, so on the extreme sides you have very less number of drivers. This is what it shows, right? On the extreme sides, out of the pace range, you have very few drivers. 39%, if you distribute it on both sides, very few. Now what you see here, 61% is what we call a simple majority, right? Simple majority, because the remaining percentage is 39%. So 39%, anything in 39% cannot be more than 61, right? Anything within 39% cannot be more than 61. Okay, so whenever this percentage of vehicles in the pace range is more than 50%, whenever the percentage of vehicles in the pace range is more than 50%, that means you have simple majority of drivers in the pace range. Majority of the drivers in the overall data is in the pace range. So that means the data is, the dispersion of the data or the spread of the data is very low. Okay, this is I'm saying it from myself. This is what I'm saying from myself. It is not written in the book, but it makes sense, right? If more than 50% of drivers are in the pace range, that means majority, right? Simple majority. The remaining is less than 50%. So whenever you have more than 50% drivers in the pace range, that means the data is the dispersion of the data is very low, and the spread is very low. And obviously, if this percentage keeps on increasing, then the dispersion is decreasing. If this percentage keeps on increasing, the dispersion is decreasing. So instead of 60%, if I had 70%, that means the dispersion is less. The data set which had 70% values in the base range has less dispersion as compared to this data set, and so on and so forth. So percentage of weakers in the base range is inversely proportional to dispersion or spread of the data or variation in the data. Then the next measure of dispersion is 85th and 15th percentile speed. 85th and 15th percentile speed. Now, can somebody tell me what do we mean by percentile? Or let me ask you with an example. If I tell you 85th percentile speed for this data set is 70 kilometers per hour, what does it mean? For a particular data set, I tell you 85th percentile of this data set is 70 kilometers per hour. What does it mean?
The percentage of people or vehicles.
So 70% drivers are, sorry, 85% drivers are driving at 70 miles per hour. This is what it means. It means
no, less than 85%.
less than 85%. It basically means, thanks for trying. It basically means 85% drivers are driving at 70 kilometers per hour or less. So 85th percentile speed is the upper limit. The upper limit. Okay. So if I tell you 85th percentile is 70 kilometers per hour, that means 85% drivers are driving at 70 kilometers per hour or less. Okay, so it's like the maximum value. Okay. Same thing for 15 percentile as well. If I give you the value of 15 percentile, that means 15% drivers are driving at this value or below it. Okay. Now, why this range is important? This range is important because it gives you the range for reasonable drivers. Reasonable drivers who have driving skill, their vehicle is operating normally, they know the road, and so on and so forth. So anybody who is more than the 85th percentile value or who is at less than 15 percentile value, they are unreasonable. They are too slow. If they are less than 15 percentile, they are too slow. If they are more than 85th percentile, they are very fast, too fast. Okay, so less than 15% maybe learning drivers, or the drivers who have something wrong with their vehicle, or the drivers who don't have anything to do in their lives. They just want to waste their time on the roads. Okay. And more than 85th percentile, maybe they think they are driving a Batmobile or something, Superman. So these are unreasonable drivers. So whenever you are talking about the range of drivers for which you should design the road, or the range of drivers for which you should design the traffic system, this is the range from 85th to 15th percentile. Okay, and you will see later on in other chapters we will use this range for design purposes. Okay. Now, if the difference between these two values, if the difference between 85th and 15th percentile is lower, then the dispersion is what? Higher or lower? If the difference between these two values decrease, the dispersion?
Higher.
No. Dispersion is also less. If 15th percentile and the 5th percentile are close to each other, that means the variation is less in the data, right? 85th is one extreme, 15th is the other extreme. So if these two extremes are closer to each other, that means the dispersion is less. The dispersion is less. Okay. So the difference between these two values, it is like inverse, directly proportional to the dispersion. Difference increases, dispersion increases. Difference reduces, dispersion reduces. Okay. So how do we get these two values? I told you in the last lecture as well. All percentiles are taken from the cumulative frequency graph. All percentiles are taken from the cumulative frequency graph. In the previous lecture, we took the median 15 percentile from this graph. So now we have to take 85th and 15 percentile. So for 15 percentile, locate 15% on the y-axis, drop the perpendicular, find out the speed. The speed is 42.4 according to the book. The speed is 42.4. How did I get it? cumulative frequency graph, drop a perpendicular from 15% onto the curve and find out the speed on the x-axis. Okay, 85th percentile, same procedure. Okay, go to 85% on the y-axis, drop a perpendicular on the curve, then find out the value on the x-axis, and this value is 54.7 according to them. Okay, so for example, if you bring me some other data set of the same location and I plot it and I find out the 15th percentile to be 40 and 85th percentile to be 55, that means the dispersion is more in that data set as compared to this one. The data set which had 40 and 55 had more dispersion as compared to this data set. Okay, so one use of these two percentiles is to find out the range of reasonable drivers, and it is related to the dispersion by means of its difference. Difference increases, dispersion increases. Difference is less, dispersion is less. Okay, there is one more use of these two values, which is to calculate the standard deviation. Now you can see standard deviation equation here. This is another equation to calculate standard deviation for frequency distribution data. Okay, so P85 means 85th percentile speed, P15 means 15th percentile speed. You take the difference, divide by 2, it will give you the standard deviation. Okay, now for the data set, these are the two values. So give me the standard deviation now. These are the percentiles. How much will be the standard deviation?
$6.14.
6.14, you mean?
Yes.
Right? 6.1. Yes. Okay. Now, if you compare this value to the value which you calculated for standard deviation in the previous lecture using this equation, okay, they are same. They are same. Okay, so this equation and that equation are almost giving you the same value. Okay, so this is a proof that this can be used as standard deviation equation. Now you have to keep one thing in mind. They are saying here as estimated. EST stands for estimated. Estimated. Okay. So as per graphic engineers, this equation is less accurate than the previous one. This equation with percentiles is less accurate than the original equation which I showed you in the last lecture. Okay. But this equation is simple. It only needs two values, right? P85 and P15. This equation, on the other hand, you can see you need number of values total. You need mean. So obviously for calculating mean, you need the whole data set, right? For the mean equation, if you go to the mean equation, you need the whole data set. And you can see here, then you need N and S for each speed group as well. So to use this standard deviation equation, you need the full data set. While for using that equation with percentiles, you just need two values. So if somebody did not give you the full data set, they just gave you the graph, or they just told you this is 15th percentile, this is 85th percentile, then you can use this equation to calculate the standard deviation. But whenever full data set is available, whenever you have all the speed groups and their frequencies, you must go for the first equation. Whenever full data set is available with the speed groups and their frequencies, you must go for the first equation, the one which we used in the last lecture. Okay, so this one is only to be used for for the case where the data set is not there. Okay. Now, whenever we plot the frequency distribution data, it follows a normal distribution. Whenever we plot the frequency distribution data for spot speed, it follows normal distribution. Okay. Now, what is the normal distribution? I will tell you from the shape of the graph. So you see the frequency distribution data, the graph. Okay. For the spot speed data. This shape of the graph is known as bell shape. Bell, B-E-L-L, B-E-L-L, bell. Okay, like you have the church bells. Okay, the bell physically itself, not the bell button, but the bell itself. If you have gone to any museum or any churches, then you may have seen these. So they are in this shape. Okay, now what is this shape? First of all, there are two important characteristics about the bell shape. First characteristic is it has one peak in the middle. It has only one peak which is in the middle. Okay, so you can see the peak value here. There's only one peak value which is in the middle. Okay, and the data set on both sides of the peak is symmetric, like a mirror image. Okay, so if you drop a line at the middle of the curve from the peak, and then you look at the data on the right hand side of the line and the left hand side of the line, it will be almost identical. Almost, obviously, it's a real time, it's a field data, so it cannot be, it cannot match 100%, but it will be almost identical. Okay, so for example, from the middle, if you are going 30 units forward, then you may be going 30, almost 30 units backward as well. Okay, something like this. So for a bell-shaped curve, there are two important characteristics. It has one peak in the middle, only one peak in the middle, and on both sides of the peak, the data is symmetric or a mirror image. Okay, so this sort of a curve of frequency distribution is known as normal distribution curve. It is known as normal distribution curve. So it is said that if you plot spot speed data, it should follow normal distribution. Whenever you plot spot speed data, it should follow normal distribution. Okay, so whenever you plot spot speed frequency distribution data, the first one, okay, I'm talking about the first curve, okay, not cumulative. The first curve should always be something close to this shape, something close to this shape. Okay, you know, in fact, scientists believe that you collect enough samples from the real world, then every data set would follow normal distribution. If you collect enough samples for any parameter from the real world, it will follow normal distribution. So not only speed, if you collect data about travel time, if you collect data about weather conditions and traffic flow and what else, stock market, okay, it should follow normal distribution. It should follow normal distribution. I have a paper in which people are trying to prove if the COVID data is also following normal distribution or not. Okay, I have papers like this as well. So, because it's real world data, okay, so scientists believe that if you have collected enough samples for any real world data parameter, then it would follow normal distribution. So whenever you plot it, it will show a normal distribution curve. The only thing, the only condition in which the data may not follow normal distribution is that you have not collected enough samples. You have not collected enough samples. Okay, so this is what they believe. Okay, and obviously we are following them. So if you want to indicate that a data follows normal distribution, you will indicate it in this manner. This is the approach of showing that data X follows normal distribution. So X is the data which follows normal distribution. N is the notation for normal distribution. Okay, and then we have two numbers in square brackets. These two numbers represent mean and variance of the data. 40 is the mean of X and 25 is the variance of X. What do we mean by variance? Variance is basically the square of standard deviation. Variance is square of standard deviation. So if you go back to the standard deviation equation, you can see the square root here. So if I remove the square root, it will become variance. You see in all the three standard deviation equation, we have the square roots here. If you remove the square root, it will become variance equation. Okay, or if somebody gave you the value of the standard deviation directly, just do the square, you will get variance. Okay, so this is an approach or method for showing that data follows normal distribution. You need the notation, then the square bracket, and then we have the mean and variance. Now you can see the mean for this data set X is 40 and the variance is 25. If you calculate the mean and variance for your data set, so the mean was 48 and the variance was 6 point something. Oh no, sorry, standard deviation was 6. So the variance was 36, around 36. Okay, maybe slightly more than 36, but around 36. Okay. Now if I ask you to go to the same site and collect the data again, you will get different numbers, right? You will get different numbers. So you will plot the data, you will find out mean and standard deviation again. your mean and standard deviation will not be exactly the same as the previous value, right? The mean and standard deviation which you have for the current data set will not match exactly with the new data set because they are taken at different times with different drivers and so on. Okay. So similarly, if you collect data at some other location, then obviously mean and variance will also be different. But all these data sets can be normal distribution if they have the bell-shaped curve. We are just shifting the location of the curve, right? Okay, so we are just shifting the location of the curve. The shape of the curve is still the same. Okay, so the curve had for one data set, the curve had a mean of 40 and the variance of 25. For some other data set, the curve has a mean of 30 and the variance of 20. But the shape of the curve is still a bell-shaped curve. The numbers are changing, the shape is not changing. So we can have infinite types of normal distribution which are having different means and variances, right? There are infinite values possible for means and variances. So until unless the shape of the curve is a bell-shaped curve, it's a normal distribution. Okay. Now if you find a bell-shaped curve in which the mean is 0 and the variance is 1, if you find a bell-shaped curve, meaning a normal distribution curve in which the mean is 0 and the variance is 1, we call it standard normal distribution. Standard normal distribution. So standard normal distribution, when you plot it, it has a bell-shaped curve with mean of 0, variance of 1. Okay. The variable which is given for that the variable which is given for or assigned to that standard normal distribution is z. Okay, so for your data set you can use a, b, c, d, anything apart from z, because z means what? It's a standard normal distribution. Okay, so you will see in any statistics book they never use variable c for any other data, because z means standard normal distribution. So you can see the z written in the form of the standard method and normal distribution, square bracket, 0 mean, 1 variance. Okay. Now, since z is a distribution for which the curve is fixed, z is a distribution for which the curve is fixed. The frequency distribution curve is fixed for a z distribution. Okay. So like I wanted to find out 85th percentile, 15th percentile, median, mode, these things, right? So I had to go to the curve, I had to plot the curve, I had to go to the curve to find out each value one by one. If you have a z distribution, then you don't have to go back to the curve again and again, because the curve is fixed. So they have already generated a table for all the frequencies. They call them the probabilities. Probabilities, frequencies meaning the same thing. So they have the curve, they have the z curve, and from that curve they have generated all possible values of probabilities or frequencies. Okay, so if your data has a standard normal distribution, then you don't need to plot your curve, you don't need to plot the curve yourself, and for any value you don't have to go to the curve and drop the perpendicular and do these things. Just go to the table, find out which frequency and probability you want, and you will find out the value of the z from that table. Okay, but the problem is my data does not follow standard normal distribution, right? Standard normal distribution means what? Mean 0. Can you have mean speed 0? No. How can be the mean speed 0? If the mean speed is 0, that means the data set is empty, right? This is the only way you can get mean speed of 0. Otherwise you need values, the values will not give you a 0 mean, right? The speed values cannot give you 0 mean. So we have come up with this equation to convert any data set into z value, equivalent z value. So using this equation you can convert any x data set into equivalent z value. Okay, so x is the value you want to convert, mu is the mean of x, and sigma is the standard deviation of x. Mu is the mean of x and sigma is the standard deviation of x. Okay, so z equals x minus mu upon sigma. So I want to convert x into z, I'll put it into this equation. So mu is the mean of x and sigma is the standard deviation of x. Okay. So any distribution can be converted to standard normal. Any normal distribution can be converted to standard normal distribution, and then after conversion you can use a z-table to find out whichever values you require. Okay. Now, whenever you collect data set, you must know the precision of your data. You must know the precision of your data. Okay, so that precision is shown in the form of E here. You see capital E. So capital E is what? Precision of your data. Precision of your data. They also call it standard error. Standard error. Precision or standard error. So you want to know how precise is your data set, like how much error is there in your data set, you calculate from here. Okay, so capital E equals S upon root of n, where S is standard deviation and n is the number of values in the sample. S is standard deviation and n is the number of values in your sample. Okay, so capital E equals S upon root of n. This will be the precision or the standard error of your data set. So whenever you buy any equipment, like for example, if you buy a serving equipment, okay, so you buy measuring tape. Most of you must have seen the measuring tape, right? You buy the measuring tape. On the corner of the measuring tape, you will find the precision plus minus maybe 0.1 centimeter or 0.1 millimeter or something. Okay, so this means what? Whatever distance you are measuring using the tape, you have a plus minus this much error possible. Plus minus this much error possible in your measurement. So that is E here. That is E here. Okay, so how much error is possible in the sample of values which I have collected? That is capital E. Okay, then we have the concept of confidence interval. You collected a sample of values, not values of all the drivers. For example, most of you, when you collected the values for your term project submission, you had 300 vehicles, 400 vehicles in 15 minutes. And out of these 300, 400 vehicles, for how many vehicles you collected the data? 50, 60, 70, and that's it. Okay. Remaining values are not part of the sample. And if you go beyond 15 minutes, then there are many other values which you did not collect. And this will always be the case. You collect always a sample of data. Whatever data you're collecting, just a sample. What about the remaining population of drivers? What about the remaining population of drivers? So we use the confidence interval concept to find out the range for mean of the remaining or the whole population of drivers. Confidence interval is a range for means of all samples of drivers. All. Okay. The ones which you collected and the ones which you did not collect. Okay. So confidence interval is a range which will give you the mean of samples for all samples of drivers or for the population of drivers. Population of drivers. Population means all, right? Population means all. So how can I calculate the confidence interval? Calculation of confidence interval comes from the concept of normal distribution. For normal distribution, we apply a theorem. That theorem is known as central limit theorem. Central limit theorem. According to central limit theorem, 95% of all values. Now here again you can see they are using all values. All means values of the entire population. Values of entire population, they lie between this range, mean plus minus 1.96 standard deviation or mean plus minus 1.96 E. So I will use E here as a standard deviation. Okay, E I will use here for the central limit theorem. I will use E as a standard deviation, standard error. Okay. So this is one part of central limit theorem. 95% of all values lie between mean plus minus 1.96 standard deviation or 1.96 E. And the second part is 99.7% of all values lie between mean plus minus 3 standard deviation or mean plus minus 3 E. Okay. So central limit theorem says that 95% of all values. So 95% confidence interval. 95% of all values means what? 95% confidence interval for all values is between this range, mean plus minus 1.96 E, and 99.7% of confidence interval is within this range, mean plus minus 3 E or 3 standard deviation. Okay, now you may ask me then where is 100%? I have 95% range, I have 99.7% range. Why don't I have a 100% confidence interval range? 100% for field data is not possible. 100% for field data is not possible. Okay, you don't have any model or any theorem which can cover 100% of the data which is coming from the field. Okay, field, real time, real world data cannot be covered to 100%. There will always be some margin of error. Okay, so 100% is not there. And what else was I about to say? Okay, yeah. So let us calculate the confidence interval for our data set, the data set for which we are doing the example. Okay, so for that data set, I have already calculated the mean and the standard deviation, and I already know the n value. Okay, so n, that data set was collected for 365 weeks. Okay, so I know this much. Like I knew this much from the start, right? And the mean and standard deviation I calculated in the last lecture. The mean and standard deviation. So you can see the mean is 48.2 and standard deviation is 6.14. Okay, mean 48.2, standard deviation 6.14. So I will just write it here. .2 miles per hour. S 6.14 miles per hour. Okay, so first of all I will calculate E now. So E is S upon root of n. S is 6.14 divided by root of n. So n is 368, and for the root I will just put the power here. Okay, give me the value. How much is E here?
0.32.
0.32. Okay, and again everything is in miles per hour. Okay, then confidence interval 95% confidence interval. It is mean, which is 48.2 plus minus 1.96 into E. Yes, how much? How much is it?
48.82.
48.82, and so this is the upper limit, right?
47.57.
47.57. And again in miles per hour. Let us calculate the 99.7% confidence interval then. So this 1.96 E will become 3. How much?
$47.24.
47.24 and
49.16.
49.16 miles per hour. Okay, so these are the values. Okay, so this is how you calculate the confidence interval Okay, so this is now the range for 95% of population of drivers and 99% population of drivers. So 95% population of drivers are driving in this range, 99% population of drivers are driving in this range. Okay. Now we said earlier that sample size is important, otherwise you cannot have the normal distribution, right? So how do I know how many samples I should collect? Okay. So in this confidence interval, I was allowing a tolerance level of 1.96 E. If you see here, this is my tolerance. This is how much variation I'm allowing in my data to be. From X bar, I'm allowing how much variation? 1.96 E. So 1.96 E becomes my precision or tolerance level, or small e. Okay, precision or tolerance level, the small e is the variation you are allowing in your confidence interval. So if you have a confidence interval of 95%, then you are allowing a variation from the mean of 1.96 E. And if you have 99.7% confidence interval, then you are allowing a variation of 3 times E. Okay, 1.96 E for 95% and 3 times E for 99.7%. Now from here, I know E is S upon root of n. So I replace E with S upon root of n. So I have the equation small e, the precision or tolerance I'm allowing, equals 1.96 S upon root of n. And here I will have small e equals 3 into S upon root of n. And from this equation, I can take n on the left hand side, everything else on the right hand side. So n using the 95% confidence interval will be this much. So I did the square because n was in the root. So I did the square here. So you can see 3.84 S square upon E square. 3.84 is the square of 1.96. Okay. And if you use this equation of 99.7% confidence interval, then you will have n on left hand side, everything else on the right hand side. So you will have 9 S square upon E square, because 9 is the square of 3, and then S square upon E square. So S is the standard deviation again, and E is the precision or tolerance level you are allowing in this much confidence interval of your data. Okay, so I will stop here. In the next lecture, we will start with an example for the sample size, and like I said, I will post the questions. I posted in section 1 and I forgot that I have to post it in the other section separately. Okay, so you will see the questions. Okay, so do read them, go through them.